Hello everyone and welcome back to Replay Works and welcome to another new series on the channel that I will be trying out, at least for a little while. So this is what I'm going to be calling the Mechanics Wishlist. It's a card game dev session for Gundam Card Game, where I pretty much talk about some mechanics that exist in the game, or that I wish existed in the game, or I wish that they would iterate on more in the game. You know, stuff like that, where I look at a card, I look at an effect, and I say, well, we could do more, couldn't we? Or we can do more with it, right? You know, that's pretty much what the goal of this type of series is. It's just more of a thought exercise, since I do really enjoy card games, and I do like to dabble in development, right? So, just to preface this, all these effects are more or less just basic effects that I made up, but it's more or less setting the ground rules for the proof of concept of what an effect might look like, or what it might do for the game. Just me talking about it. So if it interests you, feel free to stick around. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Definitely means a lot to me. We are on track to hit 500 by the end of this month, so I'm very thankful for that. And also, we're on the cusp of GDO4. You know, it'd be cool to see some more effects with the game, right? So, without further ado, let's kick things off with one thing that I really wish we had, which was EX bases with trait-specific effects, or just effects in general, right? So, as we know, the EX base is the token you start the game with, has 3 HP, prevents your opponent from punching your face in immediately from the get-go. They had to break that first. After that, it goes away. Right, and there's only one card nowadays that lets you play another EX base that, well, it's going to come on GD4, but, you know, it's just, that's it, right? That's all, that's basically what the purpose of the EX base is. For me, you know, I feel like I look at that and I say, well, that's a card that's on the field at the start of every single game. Could we do more with that, right? And it's one of those things where it's there. It can show information to your opponent, right? And also, you know, what I feel would be cool is that if it's destroyed, it'll go to your resource area, so it'll count towards your level. Probably not, you can't use it as a resource, but it'd be a way to like kind of accelerate your game if your opponent chooses to punch you in the face and break that base, so they can go after your shields, right? So, you know, to recap, it would accelerate your level count. Can't be used as a normal resource. For balancing purposes, I think maybe just put it towards the EX resource limit, so, you know, 5 on that, so it doesn't disrupt the 10 resources that we have in the game. It'll give information to your opponent. In terms of, I believe that making these oddly trait specific would probably be better than making them super generic, because when it's super generic, we run into the cases like Amuro, for example, or Kira, where they're just the best of whatever that's out there. But I believe that if this is the only piece of information to your opponent, it should give them information, or, you know, false information if you're not using that specific trait, you're just using it as bait. I think that's also something to worth consider, right? And then last, it would probably have lower HP, you know, maybe 1 or 2 HP, just so that way it breaks on one hit. To kind of tempt your opponent to say, yeah, you can rush me, but then all the other stuff happens where you increase your level, etc., etc. So, with that, my little mock-up has the Zaft, EX base, right? I just pick on Zaft just because I say it. I'm like, it's probably the most low-hanging fruit to give an archetype support, because you know, they do get a lot of this type of effect, which is. The main effect would be Restless card, choose one friendly Zaft unit, gets +1 AP this turn, use only one of those cards in your resource area. Done, right? And then there's going to be a destroy effect, which would be should be on all of them, which is just indicating that when it's destroyed from the shield area, place this card into your resource area, right? Maybe there could be like a rules text or a shorthand version of this type of effect, but that would be what I would say is the most basic type of effect I just come up with on the top of my head, where from then on rest in the game, you know, it's just going to be a Zaft specific Vesalius that you have access to in your resource row. Again, I do lean towards making it like hyper specific to archetypes, to give archetypes a specific boost, because right now in the game the bases that are archetype specific aren't as good as the generic bases, right? Corsica, white base, for example. But more importantly, pilots, you know, if they're also archetype specific, the only ones that are played are like Rao and Shiroko as of step 3. I can argue Minerva Scrub with Shin, but you know, the other two are the more predominant, right? So this would be another way to give some archetypes some boosts that maybe don't have good or really good pilots to their name. You know, Age is another example. Maybe not Academy, maybe Vegan or something, right? So like stuff like that where they're not main character focused pilots, they're not going to get super crazy good effects, but this kind of gives them another edge for the faction that they're in. And as we know, in Gundam, there's a ton of factions for them to go around with this, so it really would, you know, add a little bit of a twist or like a little bit of bonus for playing that type of faction. Okay, so that's the first one we're covering. Next one is bases that can, quote unquote, attack. Okay, you're gonna see that most of these are just here to counter rush. I think maybe I'm a little bit too harsh on that, but you know, maybe it's a little bit warranted, right? Anyway, it'll be a different way to deal damage to units, and then it also utilizes that useless thing on the card that has that 0 on every single base to actually put a number there. Now, I come up with a bunch of different examples for this one. Let's take a look at effect number 1. So this one's actually interesting because we have something similar to this coming out of GDO4, where the effect is you rest I forgot which, it's like an archetype. You rest one of the archetype units, then you deal 1 damage to something, right? You know, it's a good start, but I want to see bases that actually hit stuff. Like I want to see like a Grips laser. In this case, as a main effect, rest this base, pay 2 resources, choose an enemy unit, deal 3 damage to it. It won't activate during your next start phase, right? It remains tapped, and that's it, right? But you can do it the turn it comes into play. In this case, you know, as you see, level 4 costs 2, so you could just do it on your turn 4 curve to deal 3 damage to something, right? Something like that is, you know, I feel we might as well, you know, forget having units on the board. Make these cards do something on the field. If it's a giant, 7 minutes, okay, cool. It's a giant fuck off laser, right? So let it beam the shit out of something, right? That's effect 1. We're almost there. We got something similar to it in set 4. Almost there. Now, 2A, this is assuming it has printed AP, right? So the way I imagine this one was, it's, I guess you would call it like a, I don't know, like a spiky wall or something. It's when an enemy unit attacks this base, the attacking unit receives no damage, right? But this base can attack an enemy, right? So on your turn, instead of having bases natively being its attack, I think maybe letting it be through an effect would be fine, maybe. So this is an example of a base that can attack an enemy, and then in this case it'll get first strike, right? So it has a printed AP on it, like the previous, again, using Grips Laser. Because we get first strike, it just indicates that like it's going to deal damage first, right? So your opponent has to deal with, okay, well, this is going to keep shooting my guys down, or am I just going to have to deal with it, right? So it kind of puts that clock on that. And again, we'll just keep using the level, cost, AP, and HP, right? So that's another one that's called 2A. This is using printed AP. The other one is 2B, using printed AP. This one is the one where it's the opposite, where in this case, you know, 2 AP, but you know, just in general, because we don't want bases to just be able to attack like a normal unit. It just has no effect. It just has AP, but as per the rules of the game, it'll deal damage back to the unit that attacked it. Spiky wall. So that's your 2B. Yeah, all 3. Yeah, again, we're in example 1. We're almost getting there. Example 2A and 2B. We can kind of like inch towards there, you know, just like a little bit, you know, let us have a big defensive wall that your opponent, they don't walk away unscathed, right? But obviously make it cost more, you know, don't make it cost 1, maybe 2 is probably also too lenient on this, maybe depending on like which 2A or 2B effect, but yeah, that's one of those things where I like to hear your thoughts about it. Think it should be 3 or higher. You know, comment below. All right, next one, we have the upgrade mechanic, the evolve mechanic. Similar to other games, and I'm gonna use Duel Masters for example. We see in Gundam, there's always the next version of the mobile suit, right? The SD Gundam game at screenshots from is a prime example of, oh, there's a flowchart of what evolves into what. In this case, we get the Wing Boys evolving into their, Gundam Scythe Hell, Wing Zero, Ultron, eventually like the Endless Waltz versions, right? Instead of having those units as a separate entity, like we do see now, looking more towards like for example, the full armor Alex, right? We have regular Gundam Alex, we have full armor Alex, which is lower level than it. Yeah, that's like a small example. Next set we'll probably get, I believe it's Endless Waltz versions of units, stuff like that. Those are gonna exist as separate entities most likely. But for me, it would be cool to have it like, again, like Duel Masters is the best example. Anyone who grew up on Duel Masters knows about the evolution mechanics, right? It's just a way for you to put a unit, or sorry, in this case, the monster on top of another monster, right? That's a way of evolving it separately. On Duel Masters, though, you couldn't play it on its own; you had to evolve it, but you get like really busted stats and effects from it. This one, I would probably lean it towards, well, you can still play it, but it'll get like nerfed effects, or it's like a functional vanilla, right? So, in this case, I would also want to see it to be like a way to get rush on units, right? Or being able to attack the turn it comes into play. Instead of the only other ways that we have is to have it as a link unit, or if your name is just as Gundam. Now, functionally, what that means is that this is basically reverse pilots. Upgrading gets you better stats, better effects, gets you the, like I said, you can attack on the turn you play it on the unit. But I want, I feel like I want it to seem like it's like a mid-season upgrade from the anime, where, I think probably maybe from G Gundam onwards, or even as early as Zeta, right? The main character gets an upgrade to their Gundam, or gets the next Gundam that's stronger than the other Gundam. So in a sense, it's like that kind of feel in the game itself, right? Mechanically, yeah, I still stick by the reverse pallets type deal. It's just like linking, but you get a I don't know, it's a different feeling when you're playing a unit on top of a unit versus the link, right? Okay, so for this one, let's go for a brainstorm. This is very basic effect, right? We have a full armor Gundam on the left-hand side that is the quote-unquote upgrade to the regular OG Grandpa Gundam, right? So, in terms of as an effect, or in terms of readability, it'll say like upgrade, insert target unit here, which would be Gundam, and then the cost, right? 2 resource, discard a card, what have you. I don't know, like, oh, is this a spoiler? Okay, Witcher Mercury, just assume, you feed a pilot to upgrade it, right? Okay, so that could be like how the effect would read, and then, like I mentioned, because it's just like pilots, it will have like when upgraded effects during upgrade, right? Then you do, in this case, something really lame that I came up with, deal 2 damage to something, right? It's whatever. But, as we can still use as a unit, there's still gonna be a link requirement. So if you don't have the upgrade, but you have the pilot, you can still go ahead and use it as like I said, a functional vanilla, right? That's just like, this is just a super basic effect. This is kind of like as simple as you can keep it without making it like not fit on this slide. All right, now in terms of rulings, I got a ton here. I'm just gonna go through them really quick. For fairness, let them come into the same position as the base unit, so you can't swing, upgrade, attack, right? Let it keep all the damage counters, so it's not a free heal in that sense. Oh wait, I have to put repair and full armor, whatever. The upgraded unit can attack the turns upgraded, right? We mentioned that, just like linking. When upgrade, during upgrade, functions the exact same as when paired, during paired, linked, etc. The upgrade units can be deployed normally, unlike in Duel Masters, where evolution creatures could not exist without being evolved on top of something. Unless, you want to make a really strong upgrade unit, then it only can come in through upgrade, right? That's another way to have higher base stats on a card, right? I would see upgrade units that have, like, let's say printed stat is like 8/8, but you can't deploy it. You have to upgrade it, right? And it's going to be like a higher upgrade cost. Upgrade units also have link requirements. They're still units at the end of the day. And then, of course, just like the pilots, they follow where the unit goes. Same deal for the unit used for the upgrade. In that sense, if it gets bounced, you return everything with your hand, goes to the bottom, let them, gets destroyed, same thing. Alright. Now, next up are, we're going to call it Ward. This is exactly from Shadowverse. Shadowverse Evolved specifically. The concept is just exhausted units that draw attacks to them, right? Wow, that's actually, yeah, 3 out of the 4 effects make a rush worse, right? It's an alternative blocker. Probably don't put it in white, please. Technically it exists, right? So we'll go with that in the next slide. But the general premise of Ward is that you put it down, or in this case in Shadowverse, you could actually put the unit rested, engaged, if you want it. It comes into play rested, it has the ward effect, then your opponent must attack that, so as long as that ward is on the field, right? That's the general census. Bellringer here is the perfect example for this. It is the quintessential warder for Shadowverse, and look at its stat lines, also quintessential 0-2, right? So something similar to that in Gundam would be able to, well, not make Rush completely sucky, but just like hamper it in a certain way. Or, in a sense, it also makes it where it kind of circumvents the Amuro issue, or resting blockers, etc. that, right? Because it'll be already rested, it can't be rested again. Okay? So, the reason why I said it technically exists is because H2 Normal has this on a pair ability, but it's unfortunately cursed by the fact that it's an H unit. But, in this case, right? Let's call it decoy. In this case, decoy is just the keyword that uses the exact same text that's printed on H2. Technically, the effect exists. Let's just give it a keyword, right? And similar to how we saw for Bellringer, let's give it low AP, middle HP, or higher HP depending on how high the level is, right? This way, it can be played early on or the mid game, and to shit on H2 more, it's not functionally useless because you don't have the pilot that it's gonna it needs for that, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, H2 becomes like, I think becomes like 6/6 months like with that, but that's turn 5 and you're playing Age at that point. You could have played something better. But in this case, like, let's see it on generic units, right? Units that don't have a link, that don't need a link, right? Let it be one of those effects that exist, not as common as blocker, but like maybe as an option for other colors to consider, instead of if they don't have blocker, then good luck to the other colors, right? So that's really going to be it for my dev session, right? As I think about the game more, there are some stuff that I wish would be cool for them to add. They probably will add something similar, maybe not in the style that I thought of, but like we saw with the base, there's something on the horizon. They just need to like give it the extra push to make it where you don't have to have a field to do the ping damage, right? And obviously, as the game progresses, we're gonna have more complex effects, and this is just something that I would say would be in the best of interests to like spice up the game and add a couple more interactivity, right? Or more keywords as well, in the sense of ward or upgrade. But I don't know, like it's just one of the things I always think about, like what would be cool to see in the game, right? Might not happen, not a big deal if it doesn't. Let that be there. But as a quick reminder, all this stuff doesn't exist as of the recording this video. And the base is kind of like half there, but none of this is real. I have no idea if any of this is going to be real. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I want to explore what creative things I can come up with for the game, just because, again, I like the game. I like thinking about card games, so works together. Alright, so with that being said, that's going to be it for this dev session. Like I said, yeah, if you enjoyed it, yeah, like it, leave a comment. Tell me about like some thoughts that you had for this game, right? Some stuff that doesn't change the fundamental rules of the game, but works with the rules that are already in place, right? We can always add on to the game through effects without necessarily changing how the game functions with, you know, without like having to redo the entire comprehensive rulebook, right? So it's fun to work within that constraint, and I feel like that's what lets me think about more stuff, right? Okay, I've talked enough. With that being said, thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you in the next one.